Go ahead.
Hello, welcome today to class. You didn't come to class, that's why you're watching it now. We're going to be doing 4.2, example 3, and then the rest of the notes. So pay attention because you didn't come to class, you piece of crap.
Hey. What if they're actually sick? Come on now. All right, thank you, Christian. I appreciate that. All right. Much love, Christian. All right, so now right here. Now this changes. Okay, this one right here adds another step. Every time we've done one of these, we added one more step to this. So I'm going to start it off. What's the first thing I'm going to do? Amplitude. So my amplitude here.
-2. -2. Why is it so small?
Amp is -2. My pen was too fat and it actually made all my words like melt together. So I kind of changed the thickness of the pen. Anyway, all right, so now the period thing is, there's a slight difference to the period. So I've got to show you that one. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to factor this out first. Because this is my argument here. This is going to be my argument here. Okay, so I have to try and factor out. So I do not want the 3 in front of this. So I have to factor it out. Okay, so to do the argument, I have to have just x by itself. So I'm going to factor out the 3. So this part's going to be the cosine of 3 parentheses. Divide everything by 3, right? Because factoring is the same as division. So I'm dividing it out. So dividing everything by 3. So now the 3 is coming out here. So 3 divided by 3 just gives me 1x, right? And then plus what? Pi over 3.
Oh. Do we put that in the calculator?
No, you're not doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so this is to do it by hand. Everything's going to be by hand. Because if you do it in a calculator, you're not going to be able to pick out all your points for this. Because your calculator doesn't actually have radians, because your calculator does not having everything in terms of pi. It'll give you a decimal. So instead of saying pi over 2, they'll give you 1 point blah, 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 blah. Okay? Yes, Ashki. You would do this every time there's a number in front of the variable.
What if it was 1? Just leave it?
Yeah, that was just like we did yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah, just leave it. All right, so now let's do the period. So I did this. Now we're going to do my period. So my period is going to be 2 pi divided by what number was in front of my variable? 3. So I'm going to do that. 2 pi over 3.
But why that?
Okay, my period always starts with 2 pi, or sine and cosine, right?
With the 1, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but this one doesn't have a 1, it has a 3, right? So that's where I'm pulling this 3 from, and it goes right there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good there. So now, after I do that, what is the next step?
You gotta,
My parts.
Yeah.
My parts,
Wait,
but
that's
this...
it?
Yeah, I just added this. I just added this right here.
Yeah, but why do you do that though? I don't understand.
I needed this. This right here is my phase shift.
Do we start with 0 or like?
But why do you put the
My parts are always going to start with 0. And I'll show you how I finish that. Why do I what?
What happened to the 2 and why do you put the 3 there?
What 2?
Like the negative 2.
The period is
No,
always 2 pi.
okay, the amplitude has to do how high and how low, right? That's a y value,
Okay.
okay? So that's the amplitude, that's my y value. This all concerns my x values. This is a left and right shift. A phase shift moves it left and right, where the amplitude is up and down. So the up and down does not affect the left and right.
Okay,
Does that
that makes sense.
make sense? Okay. All right, so now we got my period. This is my phase shift. So let's go ahead and put in my parts. This is over 2 periods. So now, if it's 2 periods, I'm going to have to show you the next 4. Because we always start this off with what? What was the first thing I started? 0, 1/4.
1/2, 3/4, 1.
Right? So,
2 pi.
I'm going to still do the same thing. But now, instead of actually being done right here, I'm going to save the next page because it's a lot of work we're going to be doing here. I'm going to do the rest on the next page.
Yeah.
Okay?
I put them very close.
Okay, so now, these are my parts, and I multiply my parts times what?
2 pi.
2 pi.
2 pi over 3, because that is my period, right?
Oh.
The part times period.
Okay.
2 pi over 3.
What did you do?
I think I do. Now that I got that, draw. Okay, now that I got that, what goes next?
You subtract.
Minus sign, minus sign. Minus what?
Pi over 3.
Thank you. Pi over 3.
The phase shift.
Huh?
I like just doing the like doing that first and then doing the answer and then doing the other two. Is that fine?
It's fine. As long as you have all your steps, your end result should be the same. Alright, make sense? Yes.
How come yesterday in the other lesson, there was like, it was like minus and then the other.
Okay, let's go back to example 1 and I'll show you. This one here?
Yeah.
So this one is minus pi over 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's minus pi over 4. Now let's take a look at example 1. In example 1, it was minus a negative pi over 3, because this is negative pi over 3, right?
Yeah.
So it's always a minus symbol here, and then my phase shift goes next. But negative times negative gives me a positive, right? So 2 negatives make that a positive. Is that answer your question, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now right here, let's go ahead and do my math. So 0 times 2 pi over 3 is 0, minus pi over 3?
Negative pi over 3.
Negative pi over 3. Now, for this,
Alright.
okay, so 1/4 times 2 pi over 3, it's pi over, there we go, pi over 6. Okay, 2 on top over 12, right? 12 on bottom. So 2 over 12 gives me 1 over 6, right? So it's pi over 6. Okay? So, but I still have my minus pi over 3. This is where I do the cross thing, okay?
So when you minus, when you subtract, you do the cross thing.
Yeah.
Yes, right here, yes. So now it's going to be here. So it's going to become
3 pi
3
minus 6 pi.
minus
6 pi.
over
18.
18. So I multiply those two across, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to give me
Negative 3 pi over. No, 6 pi.
negative 3 pi over 18, right?
Which is negative pi over 6.
There we go, negative pi over 6. So it equals negative pi over 6. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kinda. Okay, let's keep going then. So right here, half times 2 pi over 3,
Pi over 3.
pi over 3. So I get pi over 3 minus pi over 3.
0.
Now, do I have to do the cross thing on this?
No.
Why?
It's
They're the same.
just negative.
Nope.
Negative
No,
pi.
they're the
They're
same.
the same.
Same what?
Denominator.
Denominator. Common denominator already. So I don't have to do the cross.
Yeah.
So, is this huh?
So if it's a common denominator, you don't have to do the cross thing.
Nope.
So
Because the reason why we do the cross thing is so we can get a common.
You go straight across then.
Straight across. So it's negative pi minus pi.
0.
0 over 3, which is just
0.
0. Okay, next one. So 3/4 times 2 pi over 3.
White line.
6 pi over 12. It turns into
6 pi over 12.
pi over 12. I mean pi over 2.
Pi over 2, very good. So pi over 2 minus pi over 3.
3 pi over 2 pi. No,
So
3
do my
pi.
math. Right, Nadia? We're doing the math right here. What do you get?
3 pi minus 2 pi.
over. Very good. So I'm left with pi over 6. Very good. Next one. My last one, or it's not last, but it's my next one here. So this is going to give me 2 pi over 3 minus pi over 3. Straight across, right? Because they're common denominator already. So it's going to give me pi over 3. Okay? So now, it's not it, because this is 2 periods. Because if I do my math right here, isn't this 1 period?
Yeah.
Because this is 1/4, 2/4, right? 3/4, 4/4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, so let's take a look at the next page. So the next one's going to be 5/4, right?
Yeah.
Then 6/4, 7/4, and what is 8/4?
2.
That's just 2. But I'm trying to show you the pattern. These are breaking up into quarters all the time.
So if it's all of this, so what if this is over a period of 3? There's that
3 periods.
faster way? There's not a faster way to do it other than doing this.
This is actually the fastest way because you still have to find all your parts.
Okay.
Now, you don't want to actually try to do the other ways.
Okay.
The other ways would actually be graph it in the first place and use your phase shift to move it left or right. Okay, so this is a faster, very accurate. So, like I said, 100% of the time, it is right. 100% of the time.
100.
So, let's go ahead. So, if I'm doing my math again, I multiply by,
2 pi over 3.
there you go, 2 pi over 3.
It's basically the same thing. You just multiply pi over 3 and subtract
Right? Okay, so then subtract my
pi over 3.
pi over 3. Very good. This is my second period. So this is whenever I have to do 2 periods. So the other one was 1 period. The other ones that we were doing were only 1 period. This one's 2 periods. So let's do our math here. So this is going to give me 10 over 12, which reduces to minus. Very good. So it's going to give me 15 pi, 6 pi, which gives me 9 pi over 18, right? So it comes out to be just pi over 2. Now, did I lose anyone here? This is a lot of work for all these. It is a lot of work for all these, but trust me, you will thank me when it comes time to do these other ones. Okay, sine and cosine are the easier ones, but when we start doing secant, cosecant, tangent, cotangent, those are going to be a little bit more complicated because they're reciprocal identities, or the tangent has points in which that they are undefined. So it's going to be asymptotes. Yes.
So when it's over 2 periods, how do you graph it? Like the same way, it's always going to be on that one side and just a lot.
Yeah, we just are going to take this further.
Okay.
Okay, so if you look at the graph on your notes, because they actually did it for you, they went one backwards and one forward. But you don't want to do that because you don't have to deal with all those negatives. So if it says 2 periods, just take it all forward. Does that make sense?
When do you take it backwards?
Why what?
When do you take it like backwards?
You don't need to. The only time that you would need to is if you saw this. It's going to be from negative 2 pi to 2 pi. That's going to be, it's going to go a backwards one and it's going to be a forwards. Okay? And so we had some of those in 4.1, but we're not doing them right now. Because right now we have some phase shifts here. So the whole thing is actually changing. Does that make sense? Yeah, when it gives you a window. Okay, let's keep going with this. So now for the next one. So 6 over 4 times 2 pi over 3.
It's 1.
It's 1.
No, like, yeah. It's pi.
It's just pi.
Yeah.
Pi over 1 minus pi over 3, which is going to give me 3 pi minus pi over 3, which is?
0.
Nope.
3.
You have 3 pi's, Ashi.
Oh my goodness.
3 3 pies and you take away 1 pie.
It's 2.
2 pi over 3.
There you go, 2 pi over 3. Alright, so next one. 7 pi over 4 times 2 pi over 3. That's 14 over 12, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that reduced to?
7 over 6.
7 over 6, 7 pi over 6.
Minus pi over 3. It's going to be 18 pi minus 6 pi all over 18.
6 pi.
Pacho.
Yes.
It's 21, not 18.
21?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're right.
I should teach.
Woo! Yes, you should, Oshki. Come on over. Come on over. You want to come on up here?
Let him, let him.
Huh?
Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah, I got the recorder running right now, so this is going to be on here. So yes, I apologize. So it's 21 pi, right? Minus 6 pi over 18. So it came out to be what? Do the math.
15 over 18.
15 pi over 18, but that has to reduce, doesn't it?
5 pi
5 pi
over 6.
over 6. My last one here. This is my 2. This is my 2 periods.
16 pi over 12 is 4 over.
8
What did I say?
pi over 6.
8 pi over 6.
4 pi over 3.
So it's going to be 8 pi over 6. Does 8 pi over 6 reduce?
Yes, it does.
Which is
3 over
8
4 over 3. 4 pi over 3.
4 pi over 3 minus pi over 3, right?
Yes.
So, are they the same denominator?
Yes.
Okay, so now I could just do 4 pi's. Take away pi gives me
3 pi over
3 pi over,
3.
which just gives me
pi.
1 pi. There's all my parts.
So would the last one just always be pi?
Can
No.
you square your answer?
Hey, can you go back to the last page real quick?
Yeah. So we just did a whole lot of fractions and math and stuff here. Okay. So last page on what?
What?
Rocha, you know you're gonna have videos for this. You don't have to
Yeah,
take
but
pictures.
I don't want to like wait till it gets to there so I can.
Oh, okay, okay.
You get me?
So they have this thing, the slider bar. You could fast forward it.
You're
and
so
you can-
lazy.
And there's
I
this
know,
thing
right?
called screenshotting.
I know, screenshot it
I took a
too.
picture. I took a picture.
Okay, it's good. All right. Anyway. All right. So now from here. So now you guys have all these written down, right? Okay. So it's time to draw my graph. So my graph.
This is only one problem, huh?
Yes. Now, what is my amplitude?
-2, right?
-2. So how high does it go?
-2.
2.
It goes up to 2. It goes down to. So my first part, my starting has to be what?
-pi 3.
Negative pi over
Pi.
3. That was the start. That was the 0 times, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what was the next part?
-pi over 6. Oh my goodness.
Next one.
0.
0. Next one.
Pi over 6.
Next one.
Pi over 3.
Next one.
I don't know.
5 over 2.
What comes after pi over 3?
Pi over 2.
Pi over 2? What comes after that? What's after that?
15 pi over 18.
Go back.
What comes after 2 pi over 3? Let's see. 2 pi over 3 comes 5 pi over 6, right?
We're in the room.
So 5 pi over 6, and my last piece is going to be just, there we go. Okay, so what type of function is this? This sine or cosine? It's cosine, right? Cosine starts where? At 1 times my amplitude.
Cosine starts at the amp.
So it's going to be where? -2. So my first point is going to be right here at -2.
Alright.
So now we're going to follow the pattern. So if I start at the bottom, it goes to
0.
0. And at 0 it's,
2.
and at pi over 6,
0.
pi over 3, pi over 2.
Oh, this is cute.
2 pi over 3.
Does it go up, right?
Yes, it keeps going up, right?
And then back to 0, and then -2. Right?
Yep. So there we go. So if I did it correctly,
Not exactly.
Wow. Picasso, not Pacho.
That was no.
I'm recording or I would have said something.
That was so bad.
Go ahead.
That was so bad.
Go ahead.
You
You
won't.
get likes.
And it's all your
students,
students,
right?
right? So they already know how
I
to
know,
vote.
right?
Christian, you get to close the video and be like, like, comment, subscribe.
Okay, now, are you guys okay with this? This is my 2 periods. If you notice, it starts here. Remember, it goes 1. Remember, a period is where it start to finish, right? So if it starts here, it goes all the way up, and it ends there, right?
Yeah.
And that's one whole cycle. And then it does it again. Up, all the way down. So there's my 2 periods there. Is that... Okay, so you're not going to have a ridiculous amount of homework on this, but by the time you're done with this homework, you should have these steps down.
Yeah. Because last time,
Can you do it now?
This amount of homework for like
All right,
when
that
we
was
first
the
started.
first
It was
one.
like
That's only
yeah, it
two
was like
questions.
21 to 30.
I know. I
And
know.
I was like, what?
So
For a
much
reason,
more
because you had to
do
get your parts down. There was those steps. You do amp, period, parts. Okay, you got those steps down. Once you get those steps down, we keep adding more to this. And once you get through with this, with sine and cosine, all the rest of them are easy.
All right, mister.
Okay, all right, so that, I think that one's it for this. So if you guys want to look at what they have. So they went negative, they took it negative and then went positive also. So we started here, here's all of our points. Okay, so we went from here this way, they backed it up and did both sides there. So it's ridiculous trying to do that, so don't worry about that. The way I showed you, just going one direction is so much easier. All right, make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so that means, all right, go ahead, Christian, close us out.
Oh. Hi guys, thanks for watching. So can you like and subscribe, make sure to share this video with your friends, and get a good grade on the test.
Thank you.